But the one thing I did want to talk about, because it's one movie that we actually didn't talk about on the podcast, and that's the Suicide Squad.
Oh, I wish you would have reminded me of such a thing. I forgot
I'm
it
glad
existed.
we didn't, because now we don't have to rehash any territory, and now it's all for me.
You know what? That's fine, because I don't think I could have done this twice. So you can have it.
Okay, so I have made my thoughts about this Suicide Squad pretty clear on my own channel. So I kind of want to hear your perspective on this. For the Suicide Squad, do you think it's a good movie? Did you enjoy it? What are your thoughts?
I thought it was a vast improvement over the previous attempt. I will say I enjoyed the bookends of the film. I enjoyed the first act, and I sort of enjoyed some things of the third act. But at the same time, are we doing spoilers right now or no?
I would say at this point, especially with the HBO Max release, that we can do spoilers.
I hated when they fought the big Starro creature at the end. I was like, why is this what we're watching them fight? A big monster starfish thing that instantly is so goofy it takes you out of the movie. There's already enough campiness and goofiness surrounding these characters. We didn't need this.
Yeah.
Like, people will complain about the first one where they fought Enchantress at the end of the film, which was kind of dumb. But how can you defend this over that? But I did vastly enjoy this. I think my favorite character was definitely Peacemaker with John Cena. Oddly enough, I did not expect to like him in this movie. I like characters like that. Idris Elba, I think, is an improvement over Will Smith. It felt like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn was just sort of obligatory in the film.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just had her not in the film and it wouldn't have changed nothing.
Yeah, I'm just so sick and tired of them giving her all this time in the movies, whether it's her own movie or the time that they gave her in Suicide Squad. You know, I think that her first appearance in Suicide Squad was great because it was the first time that the iteration of the character was brought about. It was fun, it was innovative, and it made people excited to have, you know, a Harley Quinn movie. But then we had the Harley Quinn movie, and it was terrible. And everything since then has just been the same thing over and over again. And when they decided to give her own little mini story in the movie, I just remember that entire time I was like, gosh, this is so stupid. And when the heck is it going to end? And when is it going to go back to the main story? Especially when the film is 2 hours and 15 minutes, when it doesn't need to be that long.
Right. They could have just chopped that entire sequence out of the film and it would have changed nothing. Nothing. I maybe I made this up or I read it somewhere, but I read that James Gunn was actually ordered by the studio to include Harley Quinn because she actually was not in the original screenplay of the film. And it sort of shows by the sequences that they tack in the middle of the film with her that relate to nothing.
Yeah. And when you really think about it, her character is relatively meaningless to the story, other than, you know, one could argue, yeah, but she's the one at the end who has the spear. But they could have made that anyone. They could have had anyone have that character arc, and you then would not have needed to have the really stupid character arc with her and the romance and everything like that. And it would have saved so much more time, so much more money, I imagine, as well. And it would have made the experience just a lot tighter. But instead, we got the movie that we got with some really bad, questionable decisions. And really, her character is not really that all important to the story when you really break it down.
No, I sort of had fatigue by her character by this point. I was like, after Birds of Prey, I sort of like lost interest in her character. Not to say she's not great in the role, but sometimes less is more. I will say I enjoyed every sequence with King Shark. I will say that he was the levity that I needed from a big CGI shark character. And I was happy with everything that happened. Like, you could have just had him at the end of the movie jump at Starro and rip his eye open and eat his nerve endings. Like, we don't need Harley Quinn with the magical spear. I don't know.
No, you don't. And especially the way that the way that it ends, you know, with the rats being the ones to defeat it. It's just
I forgot. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah,
I forgot.
Right?
Yeah,
you know,
I forgot about the rats.
Oh yeah, she goes into the star's eye, which turns into an ocean as well somehow. Like, it's just that whole sequence was just, again, artistic and silly for no reason. And then but she's the one that allowed the rats to enter in. And I have so many issues with this movie, and I've made the issues very clear with it. I just think at the objective level, this movie is just not good, you know. And the couple things that I can point out that are really worth talking about are the acting. I totally agree with you there. Idris Elba is great. A freaking Viola Davis in this movie is phenomenal. The issue that I have though is that they're giving like relatively like Oscar level performance, or like Viola Davis gives like an Oscar level performance in this movie, like with the passion that she shows and just the commitment that she has to the character. And then maybe that's what he was trying to go for, is uber serious so that when she gets knocked out, it's funny, but it wasn't. Like she just came across as evil and in a good way. And so when all that stuff happened, I'm like, you're just wasting these performances. Like you're in this weird movie that is campy and silly, but then you also have these very serious things going on too. And it just basically, it was a clash of genres. Like the genres in this did not really mix well. And I don't think that Gunn or the studio or whoever it was that came up with this final product had any idea what they were doing, because there were so many films, so many moments where they were so serious and then they would randomly go into camp and it didn't make sense. It did not connect.
Yeah, it definitely felt a little discombobulated. It felt like they didn't have enough screenplay to make the 2-hour runtime of a film. So I just remember halfway through the film, it would come to a standstill with the Harley Quinn stuff, with them on their mission where they just stopped going on a mission. I'm like, just get back to the mission, make an hour and 40-minute movie, make it tight, fast. That's exactly what it should be. Stop dragging this out to the point where it's exhausting. And the mission itself was sort of boring.
Yeah.
Like they just land on a beach, they go to a tower building and then blow it up or whatever. And then a giant starfish comes about. So that to me instantly took me out. I thought the antagonists of the film were all terrible.
Yeah.
Well, it's not Brainiac. It's the Thinker. The Thinker.
Yes.
Like he's
a waste of a performance.
He's the smartest guy on the planet, and he's making a giant starfish. I don't know if he's the smartest guy on the planet, but yeah. So the little things like that sort of took me out of it.
Peter Capaldi is given this phenomenal performance, and you look at the character and the things he's saying, you're like, this is so stupid.
Right. Yeah. I liked Polka Dot Man was a pleasant surprise. Did you like the gag though, where he kept envisioning his mother?
So I don't think it played well. Like I think the idea and the concept is funny, but then the way it played out didn't work because the CGI they used just didn't look very good.
Yeah. I saw it in the theater. I saw it with like 15 other people at my buddy is a GM at the movie theater, and he showed it to the employees there or whatever. But there was like 15 people and it got no laughs every time that happened. Like the first time it did, but after that, it just
didn't land.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's for some people, they find it funny. That's obviously it's a very subjective thing, I think, but the visual effects just don't really do it credit. Like the visual effects that they use for those scenes just don't look really good. And it is something that they use a lot. And also, I wanted to love Polka Dot Man so much, especially when we find out more about what his power is and, you know, how he got his power. But then all of a sudden, by making him essentially the most powerful being in this universe, it then destroys the rest of the narrative, because there's several moments when, especially Starro is escaped, where he literally could be throwing polka dots at it and killing it. And he's not. He doesn't do it. And the only reason why we can think about why he does not doing it at that point is because the script later on has a moment where he finally does and he dies, so that eventually Ratcatcher 2 can have the heroic moment. And it's like, okay, so there's no good reason then why he's not using his powers at those moments to destroy this creature.
Correct.
Yeah. It's stupid. Like, again, it's so convoluted, and it's sad because I do like that actor. I remember, you know, one of the first big roles that he had, like that I think people will remember, was from The Dark Knight. You know, people I think forget the fact that he was one of the crazy people that Joker used to throw everyone off the scent, as it were. He's
the kind of mind Joker attracts. What do you expect to learn from him?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and he plays those characters so well, and this was the biggest role that he's had. And it's just so sad that his character just did not get if anyone, they could have cut out all the Harley Quinn stuff and focused more on developing his character, and it would have been more compelling. And you know what? Instead of having the stupid CGI rats destroy Starro at the very end, they could have had an amazing moment where maybe he sacrifices himself because he just allows, essentially, because it's an intergalactic disease, right? They could have had this heroic moment where he allows the disease to take over by just shooting like so many of the things out that he disintegrates. Like that would have been awesome. That would have been a cool moment.
A sacrifice of sorts.
Exactly. That would have been a cool moment.
Yeah, that'd be
cool. It would have made sense. it would have made sense because we've already established that his powers can literally just rip to shred, people. And they are showing that at some point too, when they do finally show his powers against Starro. But guess what? They don't even show his powers against Starro because instead they just show his mom as Starro.
Well, and instead of that sacrifice, which would be an epic moment in character development with a payoff, he just gets squished.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of, what it felt like? It felt like the first draft of a screenplay.
Yeah.
Without being tweaked or edited to improve it. It just was like, I feel like he wrote that and DC was like, you know what, James Gunn, you did Guardians. You have complete creative control, whatever you want to do. And he got a little carried away and a little bit self-indulgent with his own humor. And I truly think Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 are better films overall. They're much better pacing. I think the comedy and the heartfelt moments are better blended rather than just being heavy-handed. It almost felt like James Gunn was writing jokes on top of jokes on top of jokes to where like it was drowning the story at times.
And it wasn't even just the excessive amount of jokes, which some landed and some didn't. I can only count maybe a couple of times that I actually laughed and chuckled even.
What was your favorite scene?
Everything with King Shark.
My favorite scene was when Bloodsport and Peacemaker are trying to one up each other in the jungle.
I hate that scene.
I like it. I like that.
I'll tell you why I hate that scene. The way it is shot and the music that they use do not help it be funny. So unless you are like buying into like the one-upmanship and find just that entertaining, there's nothing else about it that's comedic.
I don't remember the music exactly.
That's the thing is like, as I said, the tone that they're setting is serious. And so when they start to do that, it's so clashing that I'm just like, is this supposed to be funny? Like I was confused because
it was almost dark. See, I like the music. They almost, I don't remember the music, but if I had it to do, I'd be playing like a Predator type music. Like, I don't know. That's what I would want to see. By the way,
that's when you would go wacky. That's when you would have to. That's when you play wacky music because that would be funny.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree with the wacky music. I sort of think the funnier part was that it was like a little bit more serious, but like the way they were just executing people was hilarious. That was the comedic.
The CGI for those scenes just also distracted me. Like when he's chopping up the one dude, and I'm just like, oh, all that CGI blood.
Right. There was, speaking of, I just mentioned Predator. There was one thing I did want to mention. It's early on in the movie where they're flying in on the chopper and it has like this red light in the helicopter. That's almost like the first part of Predator where they're setting in the chopper flying in and Jesse Ventura is talking about being a sexual Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever. Maybe that was a nod, maybe not, but that's the connection I made.
Yeah. And it really comes down to this. When my favorite character is a giant CGI creature, you've done something wrong. Like anyone who knows me and knows my nitpicks with CGI, especially when my favorite character is a CGI character, that's when you have a problem because King Shark is my favorite part of this movie. Yeah. And the voice work that Stallone does is fantastic. And also the CG work they do is pretty fantastic too. I wish the rest of the CGI looked as good as King Shark did because King Shark actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, he looked way better in the film than he did in some of those trailers. There's something about him. He just looked better. Yeah. I was actually pleasantly surprised with it as well. And Stallone was made to voice a CG shark. I'll just say that. Absolutely. And Arnold could have voiced him too, actually. Yeah. Let's be honest. Arnold could have done the voice of King Shark as well. Yeah,
but you know what? At this point, screw Arnold. So...
I still love the guy.
Yeah, well, when he says screw your freedom, I have very little respect for the man anymore.
Well... Fine.
Anyway, sorry to tear you down there, but I just had to say it. I had to get that information out for the people. Yeah. He said, screw your freedom, everybody.
But he's got killer biceps.
So he does. Even at his age, he still has the killer biceps.
He does.
And he was also in Dark Fate. Let's never forget that.
Oh, let's please do forget it and move on.
No, but again, talking about King Shark, great visual effects. And at the same time, though, it just reminds you of how they wasted money on that character of Weasel, which was completely pointless.
Yeah, I do agree with that completely. I was like, I get that there was a comedic aspect to it, but they spent it's one of those things where they spend too much time on some of the jokes in this movie to the point they're not funny anymore.
Here's the thing. I think it's less the jokes. It is that Rian Johnson could have written this movie because everything about it is subversion of expectations. Like everything, like it's not just jokes. It's several jokes are just, you were expecting this, but this happened instead. You know,
Yeah,
and it's like that
yes.
can only happen like when you subvert expectations. You can only do that so many times before it just gets grating. Like when you see it in The Last Jedi, when it's serious, you're like, okay, this is getting stupid now. Whereas in this film, when you're playing it for comedy, you can only do it so many times before it just stops being funny.
Yeah, you can only toss the lightsaber into the ocean so many times. Yep. You can only kill Snoke, your main antagonist, so many times. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. That's a very fair and valid point.
Yeah. So I just couldn't stand this movie, and I understand that there's a lot of people that like it, but you know, I'm glad it's losing money.
I would say I liked like 25% of it.
Mm-hmm.
I hated the second act of the film. I absolutely hated it. And there's things I liked about the third. It's one of those movies where you watch it and you're like, I want you to be better than you are. And you like, there's like slivers of like greatness here, but you're just not. It's not coming to fruition. I honestly think James Gunn got way too much freedom in the movie. I think they gave him way too much freedom.
You start off with what's his first name? But his last name's Rooker, right?
Michael,
Michael Rooker. You have Nathan Fillion. Like that alone, why they were not the main characters. Nathan Fillion, I think, would have easily been a better Peacemaker. Yeah, it would have been funnier too, because he's a better actor.
The subverted expectation thing, they essentially waste 10 minutes of the whole opening of the movie to doing that.
If you're gonna snuff somebody, you know what you should snuff? You should snuff John Cena as a character. Like that would be funny.
That
would be funny because John Cena is not a good actor. And so it would have been hilarious for them to do that, but you only could do that once. And then imagine Nathan Fillion as Peacemaker would have been so much better, would have worked so much better against Idris Elba's character because he has a comedic background. John Cena can't act.
But at least John Cena has the arm definition to look like a superhero. That's all at least he looks like a man. He at least looks like a superhero. That's all I have to say.
Looked like a superhero in that.
I'm sorry?
Fillion looked like a superhero in that.
Well, King Shark did too, I guess. But like, all I'm saying is like, I just, here's my thing. I like when they go back to like 1980s action movies.
Yeah.
The dudes look like they could beat someone up. They look like they could lift a log off of someone, you know, or throw a log in someone. Nowadays, they just look like dudes wearing like spandex suits. I don't know.
Yeah. No.
What I'm saying is I like John Cena's arms. Judge me how you will.
There it is. There's the truth. And now for a huge shout out to all of my August Locals, Patreon, and Subscribe Star members. Starting off with my Locals crew, Cat's App, The Real It, D Sharp, Biffer the Hobbit, Robert Barnes, and Goblin Squatch. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on Locals. And now on to my Patreon members, Andrew Hoyle, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Dion, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father. Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Lance, Laura, the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Allen, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Patreon. And lastly, to my Subscribe Star peeps, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, John B, Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK Man. And a shout out to one new member, Hannibal Grimm. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Subscribestar, and to everyone for supporting me on these platforms. Also, a shout out to all of my YouTube members. You get shouted out at the end of every single live stream. And if you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and every video, please check out my Locals Patreon Subscribe Star. And you can go ahead and find those links in the top link of this description. You can find it's called the Willow link, and it'll have a list to literally all of the social media platforms and all the different ways that you can support the channel. If you join at the $1 level, you can actually get your name shouted out at the end of every single video and live stream. $5 level gives you that, plus you get access to exclusive giveaways of 4K titles. Right now, I've got tons of 4K steelbooks to give away this month, including for Top Gun. I also have A Quiet Place Part 2. I have Snatch on 4K, the John Wick trilogy on 4K, and also I have a Sicario 4K disc as well, and a bunch of others that are going to be coming in this month too. So if you want to have access to any of those types of exclusive giveaways, join at the Army of Asgard level. At the $10 level, the Keeper of the Bifrost level, you get all of that, plus you get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes videos, including instant reactions when I go to see movies. I do quick little filmings of myself and talk about the films that I have seen and my instant reactions to that. You also get access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger once or twice a month, and you get to also ask us any question that you want. We put a Q&A post up, and you get to ask us whatever it is that you want to ask. So again, if that sounds cool to you, Keeper of the Bifrost level. And lastly, there is the Chosen of Valhalla level, where you get all that stuff. Plus, in your first month as a Chosen of Valhalla member, you get a free t-shirt, your choice, ship it anywhere in the world, and also you get to once a month be featured on the OMB Reviews channel, and you get to talk with me. We usually chill out for 3 to 4 hours, and I ask everyone what they've been watching, what they want to talk about, what they want to promote, and it's always a really good time. And so if that sounds interesting to you, please consider joining. That is going to be on Subscribestar and on Patreon only, as Locals is just the Keeper of the Bifrost level. But anyway, thank you all very much for your time, for your support, and for listening to this shout-out video. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.